Alrighty, got a package here from Handheld Legend. Obviously you already know what it is. Got a couple of IPS kits for the Game Boy Advance. Haven't done one of these yet. Got some stickers. I'm assuming that's one kit. Let's see. Got a couple of cases here. These are the Prestige. How do you say Prestige? Prestige cases for the Game Boy Advance. These are still painted, I think. They still have that like velvety sort of soft finish to them. But it looks like they painted most of the inside. These are made to fit the larger IPS screen. No trimming or cutting is required. So yeah, we're doing two Game Boy Advances. This one is mine, and this one is a co-worker's, and he wanted to get his done, so he's been bugging me for a little while, and basically we split on this. So again, this stuff is a little bit pricey by the time you do conversion with the Canadian dollar right now and the price of shipping. But we split on that, so it kind of helps with the shipping. These guys do offer free shipping when your order's above $125 Canadian. As I've mentioned before, though, they're usually pretty slow with the stock shipping, especially with like Canada Post and UPS right now. Could have took 2 or 3 weeks, and instead it took like 2 or 3 days. So it does cost a fair bit more for the shipping if you don't go with the free shipping, but I think it's worth it. This is the mounting bracket, so similar to when I did the DMG, you have an option for like a bracket that'll line up. It's an alignment bracket to line the screen up. Again, it's not required, but these are like $4, and it makes the installation a little bit easier. In here we just have screws and stickers, actually, to go on the back. And that's it. I'm going to throw that back in there. And so I guess both IPS kits are in here. Looks like there's 2 screens in there. And we've got tempered glass replacement screen covers. The screen covers are required for the IPS mod. The IPS screen is slightly larger than the stock Game Boy Advance screen. So I don't know if you can see that, but the screen cutout is slightly larger on these replacement covers. And yeah, so there's 2 IPS kits in here. This is going to be an IPS screen, a custom wire ribbon that has the scaling hardware built onto it. And there's also some wire in here. 3 wires require soldering for the brightness adjustment. So you don't have to do the brightness adjustment mod. If you just turn these on by default, they're at a fairly bright setting. But with the extra wires soldered in, it will allow you to change the brightness by holding select and then using L and R to turn the brightness up and down. So I am going to do that. So, what do we have here? Insulating film for the back of the screen. It's a little spacer sponge. Apparently these IPS screens are a lot thinner than the original screen, so once you replace it, there's a bit of a gap. That's the custom ribbon. This is designed to work with both revisions of the Game Boy Advance, and again, this has got some custom scaling hardware on here to run a modern IPS screen. And there is the screen itself. And it looks like there's also a little space. Okay, yeah. There's a spacer here to stick the screen into the front of the panel. So it's like double-sided tape on both sides, it looks like. And again, the screen itself, it's very thin. It's been mentioned it's pretty delicate, so you want to be careful with it. I'm assuming that's why they shipped it in a hard plastic case. I've never had that before with any of the other screens I've ordered from them. And again, this has protective tape on it as well. So yeah, never done one of these before, so it should be pretty easy. Certainly if you can do any backlight mods, you can definitely do this. I don't think it's going to be quite as easy as the DMG IPS mod, but again, that's mainly because we got to solder these wires for the brightness adjustment. So if you weren't doing the brightness adjustment, it probably is just as easy as those ones. And again, we got replacement shells. The green one is for me, so that's going to be replacing this one. And my coworker wanted the orange one, so that's going to be replacing this one. And I guess I'll do mine first, and then if I screw it up, well, I didn't screw up his at least. Alright, so I guess first things first, we're going to take this one apart. I believe there's 5 screws. Nope, looks like there's 7. The 6 on the back that are tri-wing, and then there's 1 hidden in the battery compartment that for some reason is a Phillips. So I'll get the tri-wing out first. Alright, got all the tri-wing screws out. Small Phillips under the battery compartment. And I think the back just comes straight off. And then, let's see, these little side pieces are going to come out. It was an option to buy replacement buttons, and they would come with the membranes, the shoulder buttons, the D-pad, and these little side pieces. So if you wanted to do more custom colors, that was an option. And don't know if I've ever opened a Game Boy Advance before. Looks like there is little metal springs attached to these L and R buttons, but they're seem to be permanently held in place. What are they pivoting on? Oh, I think they were pivoting on 2 of the screws? Or no, the back half. I'm not sure. Oh, I see. I kind of assumed there would be a hole in here and like a metal pivot or a screw, but there's just posts and there's holes on both sides of the case. Okay. That's not as confusing as the DS when you pull that thing apart. The little springs are coiled around the L and R triggers, and they're hard to get back in place. So the motherboard's held in, I think, by 3 screws. I see 2. And they're Phillips again, not tri-wing. There's 2 screws. Oh, and it's coming out. Okay, so apparently the motherboard's held in by just 2 screws. Got a little detachable ribbon cable here for the screen. One of these ones where you pull the latches out. There we go. Free the tension off that ribbon. And pull that ribbon out. And the motherboard should just come out. And get all the buttons and membranes out. We'll clean that. We need the power switch. We'll be reusing that. clean the buttons and the membranes while we have it all apart. Now normally if you were reusing the shell, you'd have to get the screen out, so you'd kind of twist it and break the glue, get that screen out. We're not reusing the screen or the shell, so we're actually done with that. That can just be held on to for spares or something. It looks like basically they want us to test this before we get it all together to make sure the screen works, which is probably a good idea anyways. So I've put the ribbon in here. Again, this is designed, some Game Boy Advances have like a 40 pin connector here, and some only have a 30 pin. I guess depending on what revision of the Game Boy Advance it is. So depending on which revision you have, what side you're going to put this ribbon in. So this one goes in this way with the contacts facing up, facing towards the camera right now. And then that can sit in the bottom half of the shell, so you can get the batteries in. I'll do that last, I guess. And the LCD screen has a little connector here, just going to push on to its little receiving side on this scaler board ribbon thing. I guess just like so. Now the way that's going to be folded over when it's all in there is like that, so that seems to make sense. And pop batteries in here. And turn her on. And it works. Nice. Bit of a sneak peek there, but we can already see how good that screen's going to look. Super colorful. And again, this is just temporary, but this is going to fold over and then back around again. So I guess we can just start setting the screen into the front half now. Actually, nice, I didn't realize this. I don't think it mentioned it on the website when it tells you everything that the shell comes with. It didn't mention coming with battery contacts. So I was actually assuming I was going to have to take the ones out of this one and transfer them over to the new case. Sometimes you do have to do that. And again, I don't think it mentioned it, so I'm surprised to see that. They're already in there with new battery contacts. So don't have to transfer that over. That's actually nice because I think on my coworkers there's a bit of corrosion on those. I was expecting to have to clean those up, but comes with new ones. So in the front half, I'll figure out how this goes in there. I don't know if this, it's not like symmetrical, this only goes in one way. So I'm assuming it goes in this way because it's the very narrow gap here, and there's a little bit more room on this side here, and you can kind of see that here. There's a very narrow gap here. It's a little thicker on this side. Normally you've got to trim the shell, as I think I mentioned, to fit the bigger screen. These are already pre-fit, so I don't have to do any trimming or modification to that. So just drop this in as evenly as we can, kind of push it up against the corner. I guess that's okay. That's pushed all the way up to the top corner. And there's a bit of a gap at the bottom that might actually be normal. Let's see where the window is. Yeah, I think that's normal. I think the window is actually going to hide that anyways. Alright, so we'll peel that off and stick the screen in there. Again, so that's stuck in there all the way to the top left. You kind of have a little wall only in the top left side, like a full wall. And I just use this plastic spacer to kind of push that in there. Pulled out the center piece at this point, and I'm going to peel off the other side. Okay, now the screen is going to go in. It's going to go in like this, so the little connector tab is at the bottom right. And again, it's just going to push all the way up into the left, into this top left corner, same way the spacer did. So I guess this is it. We got to peel this off. Shit, maybe that's supposed to be lined up to the top right. Let's double check that. Alright, well it looks like I had that wrong, so learn from me here, learn from my mistakes. The sticky double-sided tape gasket thing, you do line up all the way to the left, but the screen, you line up all the way to the right. I don't know why that is, it's just the way it works out. The screen has a bit of a dead space on one side, and that's just how it is. So the screen is going to line up to this edge all the way to the right, even though the gasket lines up all the way to the left, and that should be centered. I'm going to continue from there. So we can see that's pretty much centered left to right. And so again, I had that screen wrong initially. You want the screen all the way pushed to the top right corner. Alright, I'm going to put this clear tape on the back of the metal of the screen, which is what they say that's for. And then I just almost forgot about the spacer the whole time. The spacer goes in like this. So you can see how kind of a gap right here, and that's where this screw hole is right here. And then this has got a little lip which is going to go in between the gap on the left side now that the screen's pushed all the way over to the right. So that goes on like so. I almost forgot about the spacer. I bought the spacer and almost forgot about it. I think with the spacer in there, we're not going to need the foam, because the spacer's thicker than the foam is. But again, we'll double check. But that clearly fits in like that. Again, the little gap there is where that screw hole is. And that holds the screen spaced all the way to the right, like it should be. So that should be good now. I'm going to have to clean that screen off, but would have had to do that anyways before we put it back together. So we're good to continue here. So I'm going to tackle this next. These are the contact points that are going to have wires soldered to them. going to the L, the R, and the select buttons. And so this section right here is for the brightness control. So again, you don't have to do it, but I am going to do that. Alright, so I'm just going to try and get some solder on these points on the ribbon. Basically 3 spots, the select, the left, and the right. There's a ground here, but I don't believe it's used. It's not mentioned in the instructions, and they only gave us 3 wires with the kit, not 4, so... Alright. So that actually looks pretty good. We got 3 solder blobs on those contact points. And then we're going to solder these 3 wires into there. Okay, that looks okay. Give that a little test. Seems alright. Yeah, okay. So on here, these 3 wires are going to correspond to the left, the right, and one of them's for the select button. I'll have to figure that out. Now, so here we have left, right, and select. And for left and right, when we're looking at the back of the board, like this is the cartridge slot, we're going to use the top left point of, there's 4 solder points holding each L and R switch in, and so it's going to be this top left one for both of those switches. For the select button, it looks like they want on the other side of the board this test point 2, so we're going to have to put some solder on there. Obviously there's already solder on the switches though for L and R. And then should just line these up. So left, right, and select. So left is this top wire here. Now when we're looking at this motherboard, we got to remember the cartridge slot's in the back, so the left side's actually going to be on the right. So this one's going to get soldered to here. Do that right now. Probably put a little extra solder on that actually. Alrighty, so that is soldered on there. The next one down is going to be the right side. We'll come in from the right to the left. Alright, that seems good. And we got to do the select. So that was test point 2. And the last wire, come in from the right to the left again to get all these wires out of the way when we're done. Alright, that seems... Alright, so that seems good. So we got the select button soldered to test point 2. We got the LNRs soldered to the LNR switches there. That should be good. This is going to fold over like that. And so actually we can put that in here now, I think. I think we're done. As far as that goes, that can stay in there. And we'll figure out how these wires are going to come through. Actually, there's a little spot right there for them. There's a little gap in the PCB board beside the COM port. So when that folds over, those wires will all be out of the way. I'll maybe tape those wires down. Alright, so the easiest way to get this back together seems to be like this. So we've got the front piece, the front panel down, and then we're going to fold this over like that. It looks like this would just kind of fold out of the way like so. We don't want the bare contacts on here able to touch any contacts on the circuit board, so I'm going to tape that up. This should fold over like that. We can put the buttons back in and fold it over. And that should be it. Again, the back piece just goes on last, as it came off first. So yeah. So I put the buttons back in, I folded the ribbon down and taped it. I'm going to fold this board over, get the speaker to fall into its hole, and then it should go down flat. And it's not, because the wires are in the way here. So, again, we need a better spot for those wires to come around. Just as I was putting this PCB back into the front half, with the buttons in there and everything, I realized we're missing something. There's a little light pipe for the LED. So this clear little light pipe has to come out of the old shell and go into the new one right here. Oh, it is coming together. We can get those last 2 screws in, or the 2 screws for the motherboard will have to go back in. And again, just make sure these wires are out of the way of where the screw holes are going to come through here. So I'm going to put this little piece of foam in here. And I'm going to close it up. Try and keep the foam in spot, at least as close as possible. Get the speaker to drop in, and the top of the board to fall in place. I've rearranged the wires here a little bit. They're not coming through on the left side of the expansion port. They're actually coming through on the right side, closer to the ribbon. It seems a little bit easier that way. Alright, I'm going to try and get it back together. These little things go in like so. This one on the right side has a little lanyard hole in it. This one doesn't. So this one goes on the right side. Hooks go down and in at the bottom. There's a little notch in the PCB right there where that little extension in that one goes. Again, this one just goes on the left side. And then your L and R triggers are going to go in. And again, there's a bit of a metal spring. There's a bit of a metal spring that's got to get put into the right spot. And that kind of sits in a hole in the front of the case. These might get tricky to line up. Might do that off camera. But yeah, you got to get your L and R triggers in. Get your power switch in, so don't forget that. It's going to go in like so. And that should be it. We'll try and squeeze it all back together. I'm going to try and force the back half on while holding. Alright. Those seem to be working good. We seem to be snugged all around. Alright, I'm going to tighten those up. Again, it was one Phillips screw underneath the battery compartment. Make sure those side pieces are in there right. Okay. That should hold it together now. I've got the one in the bottom, the two in the top corners. So I'm going to pop some batteries in there. We haven't tested the brightness feature yet, so hopefully that works. Pop a game in there. Well, it looks good. So we should hold select and, oh, nice. Let me do a fixed brightness on this. So we hold select and L and R will go down and up. Supposedly 10 levels, yeah, let's see. That would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah. Wow, that's awesome. Gets very bright. Come back down. Alright, I'm going to get the rest of the screws in, and then we can clean the screen and put the cover on. It's very hard to get these screws tight enough and yet not feel like you're over tightening. You don't want to strip the threads out in this plastic shell. But you want them tight enough that it pulls everything together. Alright. That's all the screws tightened down. Pop the batteries back in there and we'll test that battery cover. It's a little tight, but it fits. Again, buttons feel good. L and R triggers feel good. Everything's nice and tight. So we can clean the screen and put the screen protector on.